I never thought I'd be the one to say this on record, but we may have just discovered that we are not the origin of our own DNA. Before we begin, I need you to do something critical. Comment your city name below and tell me, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky lately? NASA is quietly compiling reports from civilians across the globe, and what they're finding correlates with something we detected 3 months ago, something we weren't prepared for. What I'm about to share with you today may fundamentally change the way you see humanity's place in the universe and our understanding of what it means to be human at all. My name is Michio Kaku. I'm a theoretical physicist. I've spent my entire life exploring the boundaries of space, time, and the cosmos. I've written about parallel universes, wormholes, and the future of humanity among the stars. But nothing, and I mean nothing, in my decades of research prepared me for what NASA discovered inside the data stream of 3 Atlas. For those unfamiliar, 3 Atlas is an interstellar object. It was first detected in late as it entered our solar system from the depths of space, a visitor from beyond, much like Oumuamua before it. But unlike Oumuamua, 3 Atlas didn't just pass through silently. It began transmitting. At first, we thought it was interference, a glitch in the radio telescopes, background noise from a distant pulsar, perhaps. But then the pattern emerged. It wasn't random. It was structured, deliberate. It was a signal, and it was directed at Earth. I remember the night I received the call. It was 2:37 in the morning. A colleague from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, someone I've known for 30 years, his voice was shaking. He said, "Mayo, you need to see this. We've been decoding the transmission from 3 Atlas, and it's not what we thought." I asked him what it was. There was a long pause. Then he said, "It's us. It's human DNA." I didn't sleep that night. I don't think any of us did. Let me explain what we found, because this is where science stops feeling like discovery and starts feeling like revelation. The signal transmitted by 3 Saturn Atlas contained a coherent data set, not a message and language, not mathematics or binary code. It was biological information. Specifically, it was a genetic sequence, a blueprint written in the same 4-letter alphabet that composes every living cell on this planet: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. ATCG, the language of life. But here's what made the entire scientific community go silent. The sequence wasn't alien. It was human, or more accurately, it was proto-human. It matched segments of our mitochondrial DNA, the genetic material passed down through the maternal line, tracing back tens of thousands of years. But embedded within that sequence were anomalies, insertions, edits, modifications that don't exist in any known human genome. They were intentional. It was as if someone had taken the human genetic code, altered it with surgical precision, and then sent it back to us from the stars as proof. Proof of what? That's the question that's been keeping me awake ever since. NASA convened an emergency meeting. It wasn't publicized. You won't find it in any press release. But the world's leading geneticists, astrobiologists, physicists, and intelligence analysts were brought together in a secure location. I was there. And what we discussed that day will haunt me for the rest of my life. Of one of the geneticists, a woman who had spent her career mapping the human genome stood up and said something I'll never forget. She said, "If this data is accurate, then humanity is not a product of Earth alone. We are the result of an experiment, and whoever ran that experiment is still watching." The room fell silent. You see, the modifications found in the 3 Atlas signal weren't random mutations. They weren't evolutionary accidents. They were intentional upgrades. Genetic switches that enhance neural complexity, pathways that accelerate cognitive development, markers that correlate with abstract thought, language acquisition, and self-awareness. In other words, the very traits that make us human, the things that separate us from every other species on this planet, may have been installed. By whom, by what, and why? The signal didn't just contain DNA, it contained context, metadata, timestamps, coordinates. The data suggested that this genetic information was deployed across multiple star systems over the course of millions of years. Earth was one of many targets. We weren't the only experiment. We were part of a larger program, a galactic seeding initiative designed to cultivate intelligent life across the cosmos. But here's where it gets even more unsettling. The signal also contained a warning, a countdown, and a location. Embedded within the transmission was a set of spatial coordinates pointing to a region of space approximately 12,000 light-years from Earth, a sector we've observed before but never fully understood. It's a zone of unusual electromagnetic activity, dense nebular clouds, unexplained energy bursts. And now, thanks to the 3i Atlas signal, we know why that region of space is not empty. It is occupied, it is active, and it is aware of us. The countdown embedded in the signal is still running. As of today, it indicates 914 days remaining. We don't know what happens when it reaches 0, but the data strongly suggests it's not a countdown to contact, it's a countdown to evaluation. Let me put this in perspective. Imagine you're a scientist conducting an experiment. You introduce a catalyst into a controlled environment and observe the results over time. If the experiment succeeds, you document it. If it fails, you sterilize the environment and start over. That's what we may be facing. Humanity may be undergoing a final assessment, and we don't yet know the criteria by which we're being judged. Some of my colleagues believe the signal is benevolent, that it's a message of kinship from an elder civilization welcoming us into the galactic community. I wish I could share their optimism, but the more I study the data, the more I see something else. I see structure, I see control, I see the fingerprints of an intelligence so far beyond us that we are to them what bacteria in a petri dish are to us. And that terrifies me, not because they're hostile, but because they might be indifferent. There's a concept in astrobiology called the zoo hypothesis. It suggests that advanced extraterrestrial civilizations are aware of us, but choose not to make contact, observing us from a distance like animals in a zoo. The 3i Atlas signal suggests something far more specific. Not a zoo, but a garden, a cosmic garden where intelligent species are planted, cultivated, and harvested according to a timeline we don't control. We are not the gardeners, we are the crop. Now you might be wondering, why would an advanced civilization go to such lengths? Why seed life across the galaxy? Why modify our DNA? The answer, I believe, lies in the nature of consciousness itself. Consciousness is the rarest phenomenon in the universe. It is the mechanism by which the universe becomes aware of itself. Stars, planets, galaxies, they exist, but they do not know they exist. Life changes that. An intelligent life, life capable of science, philosophy, art, love, represents the universe waking up. Perhaps that's what they're cultivating. Not bodies, not civilizations, but consciousness, raw, evolving, self-reflective awareness, and Earth with its 7 billion human minds represents a single node in a vast neural network spanning the cosmos. We are neurons in the brain of something unimaginably vast, and the signal from 3 Atlas may be the first time that brain has spoken directly to one of its cells. But here's the question that keeps me up at night. What happens when a neuron becomes self-aware? What happens when it realizes it's part of something larger? Does it accept its role or does it rebel? In the weeks following the initial discovery, strange things began happening. Observatories around the world started detecting synchronized anomalies, patterns in cosmic radiation that shouldn't exist, fluctuations in the solar wind that defied explanation. And then there were the sightings. Civilians, ordinary people with no connection to the scientific community, began reporting unusual phenomena in the night sky. Lights moving in geometric formations, objects accelerating beyond any known propulsion system, and always they appeared in clusters around major population centers. NASA quietly launched a data collection initiative. They didn't call it that, of course. They framed it as a citizen science project, asking people to report unusual celestial observations. But what they were really doing was mapping the phenomenon. And what they found was staggering. The sightings weren't random. They formed a pattern, a grid, as if something was scanning the planet methodically, thoroughly, deliberately. That's why I asked you to comment your city name. Because if you've seen something, anything that unusual in the sky, you're not imagining it. You're witnessing the early stages of what may be the most significant event in human history. We are being observed. We are being measured, and soon, very soon, we will be contacted, or worse, will be corrected. I know this sounds like science fiction. Believe me, I wish it were. But the data doesn't lie. The signal from 3 Atlas is real. The DNA patterns are real. The countdown is real. And the implications are unavoidable. Humanity is not alone. We never were. We are the product of an intelligence that operates on timescales we can barely comprehend, across distances that dwarf our understanding, with motives that remain hidden behind a veil of cosmic silence. And now, after millennia of isolation, that silence is breaking. Let me take you deeper into what we've learned from the signal itself, because the genetic data was only the beginning. As our team continued decoding the transmission, we uncovered additional layers. Think of it like peeling an onion, each layer revealing something more profound and more disturbing than the last. The second layer contained what we can only describe as a historical record, not written in language, but encoded in visual and temporal data, a kind of cosmic film strip showing the progression of life on Earth over the past 4 billion years. But here's what shook us. The record didn't just document natural evolution. It documented interventions, specific moments in Earth's biological history where the trajectory of life was adjusted. The Cambrian explosion, that sudden burst of complex life 541 million years ago, wasn't random. The signal suggests it was triggered. The extinction of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, which allowed mammals to flourish. The timing was too precise. The rise of Homo sapiens 300,000 years ago, and particularly the cognitive revolution 70,000 years ago, when humans suddenly developed language, art, and abstract thought. Each of these events correlates with markers in the 3 Atlas transmission. We weren't just observed, we were guided. The third layer is what truly disturbs me. It contains projections, future timelines, alternate versions of human development based on different variables. In some projections, humanity achieves interstellar travel, joins a galactic federation, and flourishes for millions of years. In others, we destroy ourselves within the next century through nuclear war, ecological collapse, or artificial intelligence gone rogue. And in some timelines, the darkest ones, we simply vanish. Not destroyed, not extinct, just removed as if we never existed. The signal suggests that these aren't predictions, they're options. And the countdown, it may be the deadline by which our particular timeline is either confirmed or edited. I spoke with a philosopher after one of our briefings. I needed to process what we were uncovering. I asked him, if we're part of a designed system, do we have free will? He looked at me for a long time before answering. Then he said, perhaps free will was also designed. Perhaps the test is whether we choose to evolve or choose to destroy ourselves. Either way, the choice is real, but the consequences were always known. That conversation changed something in me. I realized that even if we are part of an experiment, even if our DNA was modified by an intelligence beyond our comprehension, it doesn't make our existence meaningless. If anything, it makes it more precious. We are still conscious. We still feel love, pain, joy, wonder. We still create art and music. We still ask questions about our place in the cosmos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe consciousness, even when cultivated, is still miraculous. But we must also face the possibility that we are being tested and we may be failing. Consider the state of our world today. Climate change accelerating beyond our ability to control it. Nuclear arsenals capable of destroying all life on Earth within hours. Artificial intelligence developing at a pace that even its creators admit they don't fully understand. Social fragmentation, political polarization, the erosion of truth itself. From the perspective of an advanced civilization monitoring our development, we might look like a species on the brink of self-termination. And here's the chilling part. The signal from 3 Atlas includes what we believe is a classification system, a spectrum of civilizational development. At one end are species that achieve technological maturity and transcend their planetary limitations. They survive. At the other end are species that develop technology faster than wisdom. They collapse. And in between is a narrow band, a critical threshold where a civilization either makes the leap to sustainability and cosmic citizenship or it doesn't. We believe Earth is in that threshold right now, this decade, these years, this generation. The countdown may not be arbitrary. It may be calibrated to the exact moment when our fate becomes irreversible. NASA has established a task force, classified of course, dedicated to formulating a response. Do we attempt to communicate back? Do we send a signal to the coordinates embedded in the transmission? Or do we remain silent, hoping that invisibility is safer than introduction? The debate rages on. Some argue that making contact is our only hope for survival, that an advanced civilization could provide us with the knowledge to save ourselves. Others warn that any attempt to respond might be interpreted as a threat, or worse, as proof that we've failed the test. I find myself somewhere in between. I believe we must respond, not with arrogance or desperation, but with honesty. We must show them that despite our flaws, despite our violence and our ignorance, we are capable of beauty. We are capable of growth. We are capable of love. And if consciousness is truly the most precious thing in the universe, then surely a civilization advanced enough to create it would value it enough to preserve it. Unless, of course, consciousness is abundant. Unless the galaxy is teeming with a million other experiments just like us, and Earth is simply one data point among countless others. In that case, we are not precious. We are expendable, and our extinction would be noted, filed, and forgotten. That's the existential terror we're grappling with. Not the fear of aliens, but the fear of insignificance. I want to share something personal. A few weeks ago, I stood outside at night and looked up at the stars, something I've done 1,000 times in my life. But this time it felt different. I wasn't looking at distant suns and planets. I was looking at a network, a web of intelligence stretching across the cosmos, watching, waiting, evaluating. And for the first time in my life, I felt small. Not in a humbling way, in a terrifying way. Because I realized that everything we are, our history, our achievements, our dreams, might be nothing more than a chapter in someone else's book, and they're deciding whether to turn the page. But here's what I keep coming back to. Even if we are part of a cosmic experiment, even if our DNA was engineered, even if we're being observed and judged, we are still here. We are still alive. If we are still thinking, feeling, questioning, and that has to mean something. It has to, because if consciousness can be created, then it can also create. If we were designed, then we can design. If we are part of a system, then we can understand that system, and maybe, just maybe, we can change it. The signal from 3i Atlas is still transmitting. It hasn't stopped. Every day more data pours in, and every day we decode a little more of the message. We've begun to understand the syntax, the structure, the intent. And what we're finding is both beautiful and horrifying. Beautiful because it suggests that the universe is alive with intelligence, that we are part of something vast and interconnected. Horrifying because it suggests that intelligence is not gentle. It is efficient, it is purposeful, and it does not tolerate waste. There's a phrase that keeps appearing in the decoded transmissions. We're still working on the precise translation, but the closest approximation we have is this: the harvest nears. We don't know what it means. Harvest of what? Consciousness, genetic data, entire civilizations, or is it something more abstract? A harvest of potential, of creativity, of the intangible qualities that make a species worth preserving. One of the astrobiologists on our team suggested something I found both disturbing and profound. He said, what if the harvest isn't destructive? What if it's transcendent? What if advanced civilizations don't destroy lesser ones? They upload them. They extract the consciousness, preserve the knowledge, and integrate it into something larger. Not death, transformation. I don't know if that's comforting or terrifying. Perhaps it's both. What I do know is this: we are running out of time to decide who we want to be when the harvest comes. Do we want to be remembered as the species that fought and divided and destroyed itself in its final days? Or do we want to be remembered as the species that, despite everything, chose unity over division, wisdom over ignorance, love over fear? Because I believe that's what we're being judged on. Not our technology, not our weapons, but our character, our ability to evolve, not just biologically, but morally, spiritually, consciously. And if we fail, if we destroy ourselves before the countdown reaches 0, then perhaps the signal will move on. Perhaps 3i Atlas will travel to the next star system, the next planet, the next experiment, and Earth will become a cautionary tale, a footnote in a cosmic database, a species that had potential but couldn't overcome its own nature. But if we succeed, if we prove that we are worthy of preservation, worthy of contact, worthy of a place in the galactic community, then everything changes. Everything we thought we knew about our past, our future, our purpose, it all transforms. We stop being alone. We stop being lost. We become part of something greater than ourselves. I don't know which future awaits us. No one does. But I know this. The choice is ours. It always has been. The signal from 3 Atlas didn't take away our free will. It simply made the stakes clear. We are being watched. We are being tested. And the universe is waiting to see what we do next. So, I'll ask you again. Have you seen anything unusual in the sky? Have you felt a shift, a change, a sense that something profound is unfolding? Comment below. Share your city. Share your experience, because this isn't just a scientific investigation anymore. It's a collective awakening. And we need every voice, every observation, every perspective if we're going to navigate what's coming. Follow this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings. Because the story of 3i Atlas is far from over. We're still translating the signal. We're still analyzing the data. And every day, we uncover something new, something that brings us closer to understanding not just who sent the message, but why. And perhaps most importantly, what they want from us. The countdown continues. 914 days remaining. What happens when it reaches 0? I don't know. But I'll tell you this. I will not face it in ignorance. I will not face it in fear. I will face it with the full force of human curiosity, human resilience, and human hope. Because if we were designed to be conscious, then we were designed to ask questions. We were designed to seek truth. We were designed to reach beyond ourselves and touch the infinite. And maybe that's the entire point. Maybe the test isn't whether we survive. Maybe the test is whether we remain curious enough to ask why. So let me leave you with this question, the one that haunts me every single day. If you discovered that your entire existence was part of someone else's design, would it change how you live? Would it make your life less meaningful or more? Would it fill you with despair or with purpose? Because I think the answer to that question, your answer right now in this moment, might be the most important data point in the entire universe. The signal is waiting, the countdown is running, and somewhere 12,000 light years away, something